Have you ever been lost? Think about if you were out for a walk in the woods and all of a sudden you were lost. Hopefully, you would have a compass, some sort of map to help you get back to where you were looking to go. The reality is in life, when we're lost, there is no roadmap, or there is, but the bigger question is are we going to listen to it? That's what we're talking about today. We are bringing in an expert to help guide us through when we feel lost, when we feel unsettled, how we can embrace those moments with curiosity and with the true knowledge that fear doesn't need to hold us back. It actually can unlock us, and how those moments of discomfort are true blessings. So sit back because we're going to go on an adventure to help you find the life that you were meant to live. I'm Clara Capano, and this is Clarity in Action. Welcome to Clarity in Action. This is the show where we have real conversations that are going to challenge your perspectives and drive real action. So if you are tired of holding back and you're ready to make bold moves, this is the show for you. Join us as we are going to take you from confusion into clarity. Well, welcome back to another episode. I'm really excited for this talk because I think as I meet with people, so many of us are holding back, or more importantly, we're living in confined lives. We're constricting our possibilities, either because of our own fears or the fears that other people put on us. So I am here with Martine. Martine, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here.
So excited to be here. It's such a pleasure, Clara.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
So, this is something that you work with and you talk with a lot of people about as well. And I would love to just kind of kick it off by asking you, what was your moment of clarity for yourself that you realized the importance of not living a constricted life?
Oh my goodness. So mine is one I wish on no one. It was following a concussion, but in reality, I didn't even know I was living a constricted life. And I think that's part of the issue that a lot of people that I speak with today, they don't even realize. They feel that something is off. They feel that they're maybe not doing certain things that they'd like to do, but they really don't know that it's constricted to that extent. So after suffering a serious concussion following a car accident that I had, I went inward because I had nothing else to do. And because my brain wasn't functioning, it wasn't stopping me from going inward. Because a lot of the times our brain is so afraid to change the status quo that it doesn't even allow it to fully introspect and figure out what's actually going on in the inside of ourselves.
Yeah.
So in my case, my brain was on my way. I went inside, and that's where I found fears that I had that I thought I had confronted long before, or that I didn't even realize I was carrying along with me from childhood, limiting beliefs, certain things I had absorbed, and maybe just sort of like trying to stay in the safe lane rather than the expansive lane, right? Not saying the risk lane, but you can expand and grow, or you can play it safe. Sometimes you know that you do, but other times you're really not aware of it. It's more like conditioning from before. But the question is whether that conditioning aligns with who you truly are or not.
Yeah. And I love what you say about the safe versus the expansive lane, because I think so many of us, we think it's smart to play it safe. We think it's smart to say in that easy lane. And I know I did that, growing up thinking that I wanted to be a speaker, but it would be too hard. So I played it safe and went and, worked in college, got the degree and everything. But you started even the conversation by saying, something just is off. And that is what I felt so many times. So I would love to have you maybe even speak for yourself going into this concept of something just being off. What are like some of the signs that you think people feel when something just isn't working the way it is?
Yeah. So sometimes it's just that feeling of being off, like what you just said. And it's like one that you can't really describe in words, but people know that where that is. And often it'll live either in their chest area or their stomach area, right? Solar plexus or the heart chakra. But really, something is off means it's not the expectation that I had when I would be at this point in time. In other words, a lot of people start feeling off, quote unquote, once their foundational needs are met. In other words, they went to school, they started a job, maybe they're successful, and they imagine what that would feel like or be like for them. And once they are there, they're like, well, that now what? Like that's it. I thought it would feel different. I thought it would be different. And it's not an external issue, it's an internal dissonance or an internal misalignment that then they start questioning. And usually it's when I find that people will start questioning the most is in that place of discomfort. Because if we're comfortable, we don't even realize we might be completely off.
Right.
So the discomfort is actually a blessing in disguise. And I would sort of encourage people when they feel uncomfortable to sort of lean into that rather than move away from it, because that's usually the key to the beginning of unraveling all of what I like to call layers, which are things that stand between who
Mhm.
we are meant to be and how we are living. And finding their true path and finding sort of like, oh, I could do this. Wait a minute, I'm playing it safe, but do I even want to play it safe? Or was that something that was instructed by somebody else or by even my own mind saying, no, 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 just stay there because look, you're alive, you're doing well. Doesn't matter if you're miserable, but like you're still around.
You said something, and I'm not sure if you understand how profound it was. It really resonated with me. You said discomfort and living in discomfort is actually a blessing. Expand more on that. What were some of the blessings that you found, or maybe even people that you've worked with? I just think that people really need to hear that loudly and embrace that because we fight it so much.
So before I respond, I just want to explain why we fight it so much, because I think that's going to be very, very important and helpful to listeners. We fight it so much because it's actually our brain that fights it so much. And our brain fights it so much because it doesn't want any change. Growth is change,
Mhm.
100%, right? Safe is status quo. Status quo is the opposite of change. So your brain will take status quo over anything else any day at any cost, pretty much, if it thinks that it can survive it. That's number one. So it's not that we want to play it safe. It's not that we fear discomfort, but our brain does because it wants to keep us safe. That's really its job, by the way. Our job is to come in to say, to override that and to say, okay, thank you very much for your input. Now I'm going to analyze whether I actually want to go with this and whether this is truly unsafe for me, misaligned or not. The tug of war between your inner sort of desire, yourself, your potential, what you're meant to do here on earth, and your brain trying to keep you safe, that's the discomfort. Where they both meet is the discomfort. So if you're having discomfort, it means your true voice, your truth is saying, hello, I want to be heard. So that's great. And we usually don't have it when we're younger. Either it's extinguished or it's told, we're told that it needs to like shut up or go away. When we're in our 20s or whatever, when we're building our foundation, like in our life, we also don't have it because we can't afford it. And we also push it aside because we don't yet have the wherewithal, all the tools to deal with it. But when we're not so afraid to rock the boat a little bit, even if it's a subconscious like lack of fear, that's when it's going to rise up. And that's your opportunity to grab it, because in that vortex between what I'm meant to be and where my brain wants to keep me, when you walk that, or it's like the eye of the storm. It's the calmest place, but it's the one from which you can emerge much stronger.
Yeah. It reminds me of that quote where they talk about boats and they said, boats were not meant to stay in the harbor. It's
Correct.
out there in the storms, in the waves, getting thrashed about. That's what we were built for. And what you're saying kind of reminds me of that we're built to get out there and live in the discomfort, in the storms, because that's where we really grow.
And also, the storms is what allows us to grow, because the ocean wouldn't be the ocean if it had no waves. It would
Mhm.
just be like this body of water that's just kind of there that we'd stop noticing after a while. So the reality is also that we need those storms, but it's the way we show up to them and the story that we create around them that'll make the difference in terms of how we experience them and whether we grow from them. And in my particular case, I had a huge storm when I had the severe concussion and I didn't know who I was anymore and I couldn't function and I couldn't have a simple conversation. And it was like, well, do I fall into that and, spiral into it and wallow into it and get stuck in it? Or do I say, okay, what is this trying to show me? What's the opportunity in this? And what happens if I do lean into it?
Mhm.
It's then.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to myself then for having had the courage, or maybe just the lack of, anything stopping it from going inward and seeing that, oh my goodness, this is so rich and it's bringing me something.
I want to dive into this concept of courage that you just brought up and also tying it back to what you just talked about with our brain and how our brain is designed to keep us safe. Sometimes I think we get ready. We psych ourselves up, we are our own cheerleader and we say, "All right, I'm going to face it. I'm going to go do it." And it's not our brain that holds us back. Sometimes it's the people that are around us, and they are the naysayers. They're the ones that want to pull us back. and, talk to us and say, oh, why do you want to do that? It's too scary. It's too difficult. It's whatever. So what would you say to someone? What are some ways to stand up when you know it's time for you, but everyone around you, everything around you is sort of working to keep you small and to keep you safe?
Absolutely. It's one of the most challenging things, right? So it's what I call the external noise, right? So you finally have the courage to, you've talked your brain off the ledge, so to speak, and you have finally have the courage to do that, but it's still kind of, raw and it's new, right? It's not anchored within you. So it just lets you know I need to go back and I need to strengthen that a little bit more because it's the susceptibility to somebody else's opinion. If you're very strong in what you want to do, nobody can change your mind, right? Like when you're really solid in something. It's more when we're already just starting to finally get our brain to like let go of its grip so that we can go do something that maybe we're not even quite sure of, but we're like, you know what, I want to go explore. Somebody comes and knocks it. It just lets us know that we're not as solid as we thought in it. And we just have to, what we can do is listen to what they have to say, but just sort of evaluate it, explore it rather than buy into it. Because we have to also remember they're also talking from a place of fear.
Right.
And if we understand that, and it's that self-awareness that allows us not to fall into those many traps.
Mhm.
So it lets us know, hey, are you sure you want to do this? So rather than saying, oh, they're trying to convince me not to do it, I'm going hold on a second. What's in that message?
Mhm.
Oh, they're worried for me. Great. Am I worried for me? Oh, they think it's a bad idea. Well, do I believe it's a bad idea? By questioning and turning all of that, sort of like either negativity or all of those fears into curiosity. I do that a lot. I speak a lot about turning fear into curiosity because a curious brain is not a fearful one. It's actually turns into an exploratory one. So I like it's what I call in my book the adventurer mindset. When we go on an adventure, we know it's unknown, we know it's scary, we don't know what it's going to be, but we're excited because we have no expectations. We are choosing it and we're aware that we're choosing it. We trust that it'll be interesting in some way. We'll get something out of it no matter what happens. We know we've prepared as much as we can and we're ready to dive.
Mhm.
Imagine if we got up every day and that's how we approached our life. It'd
That's
be
beautiful.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate what you said is that oftentimes when people are coming across as negative or trying to keep us small, I think it's really important what you said is many times it's their fear for us. I see it a lot with parents. They don't
Yeah.
want their kids to suffer. So they tell them these things because they think they're helping them. And I love what you say is take it in, kind of be curious, where are they coming from? What's the frame of reference they have? And use that. And I love how you talk about life choices, decisions being an adventure. So tell us a little bit more about your book and how you bring this together in the lessons that you're teaching people.
Yeah. So basically, I had started off after my concussion. I kind of pivoted to become a life coach. It just actually landed in my lap. So sometimes the universe will come and tell you, okay, this is where you need to go now. And if you don't want to follow the path, I'm going to hit you over the head so that you hear me. So I don't suggest that.
Mhm.
But this is what happened to me. And my clients at some point, when they would have these epiphanies or these aha moments during our sessions, where we talked about all these things and I worked with their layers and underlying limiting beliefs and what was holding them back and even the awareness of it and working through fears. They were like, you must write this in a book. And I was like, I don't know, right? Because that's my own brain saying, nah, what's the point? There's no need. Let's just play it safe. This is working well. And then at one point I just sat down with myself and I said, well, why not?
Mhm.
And do I have a why not? Because in life, if you don't have a why not, then why not? Right. So I didn't have a valid why not. And so I said, what if I did this? This would get into the hands of many more people than what I have the time to help. And my whole point here is to be of service in this way. And so I started writing a book. I have to tell you, it took 2 years because writing a book is not the same thing like writing a blog or an article. It's really a whole, and this is a 300-page book with client stories, my own story, a lot of vulnerability, inspiration, tools, tips, and even exercises at the end of each chapter. So it really meets the reader where they're at. And it talks about primary layers and it talks about derivative layers. And it's about understanding the relationship we have with ourselves, understanding the relationship we've created with this thing called life and how, life gives you lemons and life is unfair. And really, life is just the stage upon which we interact. It's the context. It isn't anything else, but it's a mirror to your understanding of your own powerfulness or disempowerment. So if you feel life is, unfair, unjust, you're probably disconnected from within somewhere. So you go back in and you work through that. I talk about the inner boardroom, which is learning to run your own show, your own meeting, rather than having a fear take over and then just giving you the conclusion. So when you decide something is not for you, but you don't agree with that and you don't feel good about it, but you feel held back, then who's stopping you? So it's a part of you that you haven't heard, and your brain gave you the conclusion, don't do this. So rather than just having the conclusion, I teach the readers on how to go within, listen to every voice, hear every voice without fear and with courage. And then you choose what aligns with you and how to choose what's aligned and what does alignment mean, right? And then the relationships we have with different people as we grow up. So employer, employee, which is really very sort of challenging because it's this illusion of hierarchy, right? Or whereas we're all equal, we're just different. Intimate relations, how we're really each just mirrors for each other. And so rather than being triggered, can we just look at that as an invitation to heal something within us or to understand ourselves better? And then just peer relationships. And then, how these layers come to be in the first place. So that kind of parent-child interaction, or, our initial caregivers teach us a lot about the world. But at the end of the day, we need to come back and then say, okay, who am I within that, rather than what did I absorb? And that doesn't have to be me. So that's really what the book is about, in a nutshell. And it's kind of a journey. It starts off with my own journey and how I discovered all these things. And then it brings the reader onto their own journey and really meets them where they're at so they can discover themselves, who they are, what their triggers are, their layers, what holds them back, and become freer. Because at the end of the day, it's about internal freedom. When you're free on the inside, you have that inner peace, you have that mind quiet, instead of the mind chatter. Your brain helps you rather than fights you. And then you can go and live your life as you so choose.
As a high performer, I love to start my day with two critical things. One, time with my dog, and two, coffee. And not just good coffee, but great coffee. I am proud to have Fetch Coffee Roasters as a sponsor for Clarity in Action, not only because they have great coffee with fun names such as Muddy Paws and Squirrel, but also for every bag of coffee that they sell, they donate $1 to helping dogs in need. I mean, how much better could it get than that? In fact, they've raised over $25,000 in their local communities. So go over to fetchroasters.com and grab your coffee and share some love with some dogs in your community too. And what I really like about your book is that you built the exercises inside of it. So many times there's an additional workbook, but you're giving people the opportunity to not only learn but to workshop it for themselves. And I would imagine, we have different evolutions. Who you are today, you still might evolve 10 years from now. So I would imagine that this book is also something you could come back and revisit at different times and different stages as you evolve your own life.
So it's great that you're saying that. One of the nicest thing that anybody has ever told me about the book, because I get a lot of feedback, is I kind of feel like you're in my living room speaking to me, but I kind of feel that in 5 years from now, I'm going to see something different in your book. In other words, as they were reading it, they were already realizing that this is something that they can read every couple of years or every number of years because they can go deeper. So the idea is to go deeper every time. The reason why, and some people have told me, well, why don't you just do a separate workbook? The reason why I chose not to do that is because there's also a brain thing. The way that we integrate information, the way that we shift mindsets and shift energy within us and shift awareness is by exercise, by doing things a little bit at a time, but in a sort of consistent way, by writing, by using all of our different senses. So as you're reading, as you're imagining, as you're integrating, if you then have an exercise that's either meditative or writing something out or just sitting with something and questioning and going deeper, it's going to be integrated more so. And I wanted the reader to be able to do that if they so chose, whenever they wanted to, but as they started to absorb the information and go through the journey and really see the shifts within themselves.
Yeah. So, other than getting your book, and that's a great starting point, what would be maybe another starting point? If somebody is sitting there right now saying, this is really resonating with me. I just feel out of alignment. I don't feel I'm living my truth. What is a great starting point for someone?
So they can certainly reach out to me. They can look at the website. There are a lot of tips and tricks on the website. There's also a giveaway that's really nice. Like it's a 2-day challenge with videos and also writing, so they can get a feel for that. And I really would encourage them to reach out to me. I still have a few, spots for clients and whatnot, and I always try to do that. So especially when I go on podcasts, because to help other people. I do sometimes, group work as well for some people who like that as well. So they can bring their friends along and they can do it together. And I would really encourage them to reach out. I would encourage them to sign up for my newsletter, where there are a lot of tips as well. And it's really all about awareness. So you take the first step, and it does take courage, and that's okay. Courage doesn't mean you negate the fear. Courage means you bring the fear along for the ride. You just don't put it in the driver's seat,
I love
right?
that. Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to get the credentials in terms of the info of where to contact me, but I would really encourage them to do that, because my mission here is really to bring that self awareness. I believe each person deserves, it's their birthright to know who they are and to be able to be free and to choose the life that they want rather than having it imposed upon them.
So beautiful. And I really love everything you're saying. I know that there have been many times in my life that I didn't feel that way. And going on the searching, it's scary, it's frustrating. And when you finally get to that point where you're living in alignment, it is so beautiful. And the word freedom that you bring up, we all do have that God-given right to that. And so I applaud you for speaking up and for guiding people down this journey. You bring up this idea of curiosity, you bring up this idea of adventure. So I would love to ask you, what is next for you? What adventure lies ahead for you that you're working on right now?
So that's so interesting. A number of people have asked me that. And I actually decided to take the summer to continue to do podcasts and speaking engagements. But other than that, to actually really sit with myself for a while, because this is the first summer where I'm not crazy busy. I'm not writing a book or preparing for a launch, and choosing, really seeing what's aligned and what is the universe going to show me in terms of the next steps to really bring this to more people, and just to be of service, 2.0. And so that's what I'm going to do. Sometimes it's a matter of pausing and taking the time to really give that space for yourself, and then the answers come to you.
Love that. Well, Martine, I love talking with you. You are just really highlighting the fact that we all are going on these journeys. And rather than letting fear, or as you said, don't give courage the driver's seat, or fear the driver's seat, and have that courage, I think it's just a new way of having a little bit more forgiveness, a little bit more grace for ourselves to lean into the adventures that are ahead of us. And we are certainly going to put all of your information in the show notes. And I encourage everyone to go out and get your book and go through these exercises on their own. So, one final question I have for you with our time today is, sitting where you sit today, learning everything that you've learned up to this point in time, how do you define success for yourself today?
Success for me is inner alignment. Success for me is inner peace. And success for me is being able to have the courage to live in my truth. And I say courage because it's not an easy thing to do for anybody. And so it does take courage. And it's not to be taken lightly, and it's to be acknowledged.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing time today. I wish you so much on your next adventure, and just appreciate you sharing your thoughts, your courage, and your insights with us today.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Oh my gosh. As I was listening to Martine's, I was like, pull quote after pull quote. Oh my God. She said so many things that are great. I love when she talked about, are you driving on the the highway of safety or the highway of expansion? Safe sounds good, and it can get us to a destination, but it may not be the destination that we want. So always taking the safe way is not the best. One of the biggest things that she mentioned that I loved is how discomfort is actually a blessing, because that is when we grow. That is when we learn. That is when we truly step in to who we are meant to be. And we fight discomfort. We fight change. She even talked about, from a scientific, biological perspective of the brain, it keeps us safe. But we have to start understanding that discomfort is a beautiful thing. Loved when she talked about be curious. This is a topic that so many of the people I've talked with have brought up. Be curious. Life is an adventure. Ask more questions of yourself, of those. Look at the frame of reference. When other people are giving you opinions, take them in, be curious, go deeper, but find out and really listen and evaluate for yourself what is in alignment for yourself. And then she also talked about this idea of courage, that courage is not the absence of fear. It's actually taking that fear on the journey with you, but not giving it the driver's seat. What a great way of looking at that and understanding that courage is moving forward with fear, but not giving fear the control over where we're going. So, whether you are lost, whether someone in your world you know is lost, because I guarantee you, someone in your circle is feeling this if it's not yourself. I see people each and every day, and I know that I have lived in those moments too. And getting some clarity, building that confidence, and having that courage to go forward really has brought me to where I am today. And I want everyone to have that freedom of choice, that freedom of living. So I appreciate you staying tuned. Please make sure, let's share this episode because, like I said, whether it's you, whether it's someone you know, we have the ability to help people get unlocked and move forward into their own life adventure. So share it, like it, keep following us. Make sure to visit our show and give it a 5-star rating and review so that we can continue to share these messages. And stay tuned next time. I'm Clara Capano, and this has been another episode of Clarity in Action.